Let's jump right into this explainer because today we are tackling something that's going to totally rewire how you look at the world around you. We're breaking down Dan Weber's philosophical framework, specifically how dimensions don't just awkwardly stack on top of each other like building blocks, but actually merge together through change. If you've ever felt like the standard textbook definition of time is kind of missing the point of what reality actually feels like, well, you're in the right place. What if our entire concept of time is literally just a geometric illusion? I mean, think about it. We treat time like this invisible container, right? Just a straight track we're forced to walk down from the past to the future. We slice it up, we try to save it, we worry about wasting it. But what if we've got it all wrong? What if time isn't a dimension at all, but a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality actually works? Hold on to that thought, because to figure out where we went off track, we first got to look at the blueprint we've been using. Section 1, the standard spatial model. Okay, so here's where we start. Weber calls this the spatially derived model of reality. Basically, classical geometry teaches us that you build dimensions by using the boundaries of the smaller ones. Step 1, you've got a zero-dimensional point. Step 2, you stretch that point out and boom, the 2 points become the boundaries of a one-dimensional line. Step 3, stretch the line and you get a two-dimensional plane, like a flat sheet of paper. And finally, step 4, stack those planes up and you get three-dimensional space. It's incredibly neat, isn't it? Very tidy. Every dimension is neatly boxed in by the one below it. But there's a pretty massive flaw in this setup. And that leads us to section 2, the problem with time. We hit an absolute brick wall the second we try to shove time into this neat little model. We just built 3 dimensions of space beautifully, but then we just awkwardly tack on time as the quote-unquote 4th dimension. Here's the catch, though. In this standard model, a higher dimension physically contains the lesser ones. A 3D box holds 2D planes, which hold 1D lines. But how on earth does time physically contain 3D space? It doesn't geometrically fit. We try to map it out spatially, imagining a timeline like pearls on a string, assuming the now is just a tiny, sizeless point. But Weber points out that this spatial model totally breaks down here. The philosopher Henri Bergson hit the nail right on the head with this. He said, we are dividing the unfolded, not the unfolding, using the mathematical point that has been carried over from space to time. Basically, he's calling us out. We're falsely spatializing time. We take this rigid geometric idea of a point from space and try to paste it over our actual conscious experience of living. But real time, real duration, it's a continuous flow. It's an unfolding. When we try to chop it up into frozen snapshots, we aren't measuring reality anymore. We're just making up a mathematical ghost. Section 3, the true essence of dimensions. So this standard model is busted. To fix it, Weber argues we need a total paradigm shift. Instead of looking at how dimensions differ from each other, like a line versus a plane, we need to ask how they differ in themselves. What is their core essence? The essence of a point, that's location. The essence of a line, alignment. A plane, form. And the essence of space, density. Now, looking at it this way, dropping time in as the next step makes zero sense. What actually has its own unique essence, separate from location, alignment, form, or density? It's motion, and its core essence is speed. Which brings us to section 4, speed as the 4th dimension. So we're officially swapping out time for motion as the true 4th dimension. And we're not just talking about motion as some byproduct of things moving around. We're talking about it as a foundational, baked-in property of reality. Motion is a unique dimension, and its singular defining characteristic is speed. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Picture 2 identical objects, same exact form, same density, moving along the exact same path, side by side. What is the one and only characteristic that sets them apart purely within the realm of motion? It's their speed. One is fast, one is slow. Speed is the essence. Getting this requires us to shatter another big illusion. We usually think about movement in space, right? Like space is just this huge, static, empty room, and things just change addresses inside it. But Weber proposes something way more radical, and honestly, a bit mind-bending: movement of space. The idea that space itself is in motion. We really have to stop viewing motion as just traveling from point A to point B, and start seeing velocity as a fundamental property that's actually woven into the very fabric of the universe. Let's ground this with a brilliant physical metaphor right from the source material. Imagine a fast-flowing stream with a rock hidden just under the surface. Right behind that rock, you get a standing wave. It looks totally solid, right? Like a fixed, unmoving object.
But actually, water is violently rushing through it constantly. The actual 3D shape, the form of that wave, is entirely dictated by the speed of the water. If the speed changes, the physical form literally changes. The variable of speed is dictating physical form. The dimensions are merging right in front of us.
Section 5, the Whirlpool Unified System. This is where everything clicks together. If dimensions merge and motion dictates form, where do we see the whole shebang happening all at once? In a unified system. Specifically, a whirlpool. Check this out. The 1D line is the central axis. That's your alignment. The 2D plane wraps around it to create the surface. That's the form. The 3D space is the actual water being drawn inward. That's your density. And the fourth dimension? That's the rotation, the speed, which gets faster and faster towards the center. Every single dimension is existing simultaneously here, locked together as variables in one flowing system. Section 6, how dimensions merge through change.
So, we've essentially torn down the whole idea of the universe being built out of separate little boxes. Like the title of our explainer says, dimensions merge through change. Space doesn't just stop where time begins. They bleed into one another seamlessly. So where does that leave time? Well, time isn't a separate container at all. Time, as we actually experience it, is simply a generalization of change. We just invented the concept of time because our brains desperately needed a way to measure and categorize the relentless, fluid changing of reality. Instead of trying to force reality onto an artificial timeline, we've got to realize that change is the true foundation. It's the very essence of reality, where every individual dimension finds its unity. Alignment, form, density, speed. They're all literally just different expressions of how reality changes. Change is the glue. It's not a hallway we're walking down. It is what everything fundamentally is.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a massive thought experiment from Dan Weber. If motion is the fourth dimension, just a lower expression of change, what about biological life? Could things like growth and evolution actually be a higher dimension altogether? Think about DNA for a second. The information isn't physical. Life rides on the physical chemistry, using stored instructions to literally direct physical growth. Since growth depends on motion, but is clearly so much more complex, maybe life and evolution are the true fifth dimension of our reality. The geometry of reality doesn't just stop with space and motion, it scales all the way up into the phenomenon of life itself. Chew on that today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the dimensions of your reality.